The case featured in this episode has been researched using police records, court documents, witness statements, and the news. Listener discretion is advised. All parties mentioned are innocent until proven guilty, and all opinions are my own.
We are going to get into the story of Phoebe Handsjuk. Are you familiar with this story, Nikki? It's the trash chute case.
I've heard the name mentioned many times, but I don't know her story, so I'm really interested to hear it.
It's crazy. It's a very weird death. There's a lot going on. And yeah, I have not stopped thinking about it for the last week. So I really want to hear what you think about this. On December 2nd, 2010, a concierge working at the Valencia Luxury Apartments in Melbourne, Australia, would make a horrifying discovery. While looking for a broom in the refuse compactor room, which is like a garbage chute area, the worker stumbled across an unresponsive young woman lying in a pool of blood. This was 24-year-old Phoebe Handsjuk, who lived on the 12th floor of these apartments with her boyfriend, Anthony Hampel, who went by Ant. So a little bit about Phoebe. She was born May 9th, 1986. She was the oldest sister to two brothers, Tom and Nikolai. Her father, Lynn, was a psychiatrist, and she grew up in the Richmond area. She was very well-rounded, it seems. She was really active, loved the outdoors. She was a really good artist. I saw some pictures of her artwork. She also wrote poems. And she was also an avid climber and martial artist. But when she grew older, she did struggle with some mental health problems. She had anxiety and depression, and she had become codependent on alcohol. She started drinking when she was 15, and she did get counseling for this, but she continued to struggle. She also had a couple of boyfriends that were a lot older than her. She did have a history of running away once when she was younger, but she always had bigger goals for her life. And she was looking forward to traveling. She was going to do aid work in India. So she had these aspirations despite some struggles. And when Phoebe was 23, so 1 year before her death, she met 39-year-old Ant Hampel, the boyfriend in the apartment. So Ant was this major event promoter in Australia. He was very popular, all of these big club events. He was basically a promoter for them. Despite their age difference, they took a liking to each other. Basically, Phoebe worked at a hair salon and he was one of her clients. So that's how they met. After dating for about 5 months, so October 2009, they moved in together in this apartment at the Valencia. Phoebe continued to drink alcohol, and they had an on and off again relationship. She would try to break up with Ant 4 times within the 6 weeks of her death.
Well, that sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. So now, going back to the scene of the crime. Police concluded Phoebe entered the garbage chute sometime between 12:03 p.m. and 7 p.m.
That's a huge gap.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about why that is in a second, but obviously that's a huge problem in this case. 7 hours is a very long time. A lot could have happened. Also, and there's pictures of this in the Instagram I sent you, the trash chute that she entered is incredibly small. It measured just 4.5 by 8.5 inches. Or 14.5. Wow. I think I said 4. 14.5 by 8.6 inches. So somehow she squeezed into it, and it's pretty high up too. She would have had to have put her feet up by her head, shimmied in there, gone 40 meters or 131 feet down, feet first. And police said that she survived the fall because there's blood and she crawled through it. You're able to see that. She had fractured both of her legs. She severely injured her right foot, basically severed it. And this would have been horrific. I mean, she was in the dark by herself. So it's an awful way to die.
I can't imagine.
She was also found with her jeans below her knees, which didn't make sense because she's going down a chute. So, like, if anything, her jeans would have ridden up, I would think.
Yeah.
Her clothes were relatively clean, despite the dirty trash chute. She's found in a pool of blood unresponsive, so an ambulance was called. But when the paramedics got there, they were instructed by the police that this was a crime scene and they were not allowed to touch her.
Okay.
So we don't know if she was alive or not when she was initially found.
Right.
Police did say that they checked for signs of life, but there's no way when you actually look at like the investigation and the documentation, there's no way to actually confirm this. So there's been a lot of speculation about her time of death.
Okay.
The toxicology report later showed that Phoebe had a blood alcohol reading of 0.16, 3 times over the legal limit. She also had 1 or 2 sleeping pills in her system, the Stilnox brand. And Stilnox was prescribed to and her boyfriend, not something prescribed to her. So at first, police believed that Phoebe sleptwalked into this chute. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
With sleeping pills in her system, she slept. Okay. All right.
Right. And we've already talked about how hard it would be to even get in there in the first place.
This thing, I'm looking at a picture of it and it's tiny. You would have to magician yourself into this thing. I don't even know how you get your legs in there.
Right. Yeah.
At the angle that the chute opens.
To do this by yourself would be damn near impossible.
Yeah.
And I mean, you would think that police would have like done an experiment to see, but they didn't. However, 60 Minutes Australia did. There's like a Nines under investigation video that you can watch. I have some screen recordings of it that I'm going to put in the video. I think I sent some of the pictures to you, but basically there's no way that she could have climbed in there without herself. So there's really nothing to grab onto either. And it was way easier for someone to have basically hoisted her over their shoulder and like put her in feet first and kind of like slide her in there.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Police thought she sleptwalked, and then 5 days after Phoebe's body was found, December 7th, police changed their stance and determined that the cause of death was suicide or death by misadventure.
Okay, suicide by trash chute.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of that happening?
I have never heard of that happening. That would be a first.
Neither have I. And it's a strange conclusion to come to so quickly, you know, just a couple of days after. And the problem, too, is when you put that cause of death as suicide, it really hinders an investigation. You can't put all these inquiries in for evidence and people's computers. This really, really slowed a lot of things down.
Yeah, it basically stops any sort of criminal investigation from taking place. So
yeah,
exactly. A lot of things would be lost. A lot of evidence, a lot of fresh testimony would just be lost because they wouldn't even be investigating it as a crime.
That's exactly right. So obviously, someone completing suicide by throwing themselves down a garbage chute is virtually unheard of, and nothing like this had ever happened in Australia. So obviously, Phoebe's family is like, what are you talking about? So as we talked about earlier, Nines Under Investigation reenacted this. They used a model the same age and build as her, and they created an exact replica of the chute. She's trying to get in, has all this difficulty. It was incredibly easy, though, for that guy to hoist her over the shoulder, put her in feet first. And police do believe that she went into the chute feet first. But the coroner determined that she had gone in with her arms at her side. And the only way that this girl could fit in the reenactment was with her arms above her head. It was too narrow.
Yeah. Okay.
But the coroner thought this because she had all these injuries on her arms. So it didn't really make sense for her to go in hands above her head and have all of these bruises on like the medial sides of her arms if that's what had happened. So
right.
There were also injuries on Phoebe's head that were inconsistent with a foot first fall, and these injuries remain unexplained. But some other experts have said this is consistent with a physical attack. There were bruises and grip marks, seemingly. Some people say they're just random bruises, but other people say they look like grip marks on her arms, her left wrist, and her neck. There were also a lot of issues with collecting evidence, like we started talking about earlier. There are 3 potential crime scene areas: the apartment that Ant and Phoebe share, the top of the chute where she would have gone in, and the bottom, the refuse room. These crime scenes were not properly sealed off. The blood that was found in all of these areas, a lot of it wasn't collected or analyzed or photographed. There was a significant amount of blood found in Phoebe and Ant's apartment, and not all blood samples found were DNA tested. So we don't know if all this was Phoebe's blood or somebody else's. The blood on the door of the refuse room was not DNA tested. The blood found on the chute door was not tested or photographed. And no fingerprints were found on the chute door that she would have opened to go into.
Interesting.
Right. Large footprints were noted leaving the apartment, but these were not photographed or analyzed further. Multiple areas of the apartment were never searched. So obviously, there's a lot that we don't know.
That's lost forever, unfortunately.
Yeah. And sold the apartment not long after this.
Okay.
The other issue is the CCTV footage. This is 2010, so there's CCTV footage all over this apartment. And when Phoebe was first found, allegedly an employee was talking to police and said, hey, these record over after 48 hours. You should probably get this footage. And police just didn't get it.
Oh my gosh.
Apparently they came back like a couple days later and were like, hey, what about that footage? And they were like, we don't have it anymore. I told you.
That's awful.
So that was a whole issue. Not to mention the hard drive for the footage also later went missing.
Okay.
There's so many issues. There's so many issues.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so regarding suspects, really the only suspect that we have is Ant. No other suspects were named. And also, Ant was never considered a suspect, like identified as one by the police. But, you know, we have to look at him.
Right.
40-year-old Ant is described by others as having been a very controlling boyfriend. In the days leading up to Phoebe's death, she and Ant were not doing well. They actually had dinner with some friends a couple days before, and the dinner was super awkward. It ended abruptly. The friend was basically saying that, like, every time Phoebe would try to, like, open up about some struggles she had going on, Ant kept, like, cutting her off. She went out with a friend later that night to a bar, and the whole time she was there, the friend said that Ant kept calling her. He's blowing up her phone. She had 27 missed calls from him. Phoebe called a crisis hotline a couple days before her death. We don't know what was said. Phoebe was also very close with her grandmother and confided in her that she had made plans to break up with Ant. One of the things that Phoebe's mom said in the 60 Minutes Australia interview is that she would visit Phoebe, and there was one time that she went in there and was like, where are all of your things? Because they've been living together for months. She's like, this apartment has like none of your stuff. And she said that the reason for this is because Ant liked the place clean. He liked it to look a certain way. He didn't want all of her stuff everywhere because it would just be a mess.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah. So there's just like no character of her in there. And she was this amazing artist. She loved to paint. Like none of her stuff was in there. It's just really weird.
Especially an artist. Artists have things, they have character.
Right.
That's really sad.
Yeah, exactly. The mom basically said they just seemed very mismatched in every way. So she really didn't see it lasting. Aunt's iPhone and computer were also not seized on the night of Phoebe's death. It took about 4 months for police to get all of this because of the suicide ruling. Aunt claims that the day that Phoebe died, he had been at work. I'm assuming that they confirmed this. I really couldn't find anything else about that. But he did come back in the evening because they checked his swipe entry card. He came back at like 6 o'clock. So like an hour before Phoebe was found. Goes in his apartment. And he told police that he walked in and it was in total disarray. There's broken glass on the floor. There was some blood on the computer that they shared in the apartment. There was a couch cushion, like ripped up and all over the floor. So you would think that Aunt would see this and like be worried, call the police, but he didn't because she was found at 7 p.m. by an employee. There's no calls that he made. He was sitting in his apartment drinking a beer and eating food.
That's shocking.
And he had a dog. So it's just weird. Like, you have broken glass on the floor. You're not going to clean it up. You have a dog walking around. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
Very suspicious. He also said that him and Phoebe hadn't spoken that evening, but phone records would prove that he did call her in the evening. It doesn't say what time, so I don't know. But they spoke for 13 seconds that evening. Like I said earlier, Phoebe had tried to break up with him 4 times in the 6 weeks before her death. She also had a psychologist that she was seeing because she had mental health things going on. And the psychologist would later speak about this, saying that in the days leading up to her death, her mood was very low, but the word suicidal was never used. Phoebe had also told her psychologist numerous times that her relationship with Aunt was very troubled, he was verbally abusive, and that this led to her drinking more and more heavily. Phoebe had tried to leave Aunt multiple times, but he would always seemingly lure her back. He was one of those. Okay, so this part really bothers me. I can't figure this out, so I really want your opinion on this. The day before her death, a really weird text message from Phoebe's phone is sent to her family and to her boss. I think it was like to her brothers, her parents, and her boss. So the text message read, "Hi, family. I am in bed about to sleep, and when I wake, I will transform into the most incredible human you've ever seen. Not, I will go to hospital. It's safer there, and I hear the special tonight is tomato soup. Delicious. Nutritious. I love you all very much, but not enough to send an individual text. Sorry about that, but time is sleep, and I must be on my way. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. XO." End quote.
That's interesting. That sounds like someone who clearly is abusing alcohol and maybe prescription drugs as well. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah, it's really, really strange. And we know that she was alive the morning of her death, which we'll talk about. So it's not like she died earlier than that and like this text message could have been sent by someone else. It seemingly was sent by her, but it's just such a weird message. It's very incoherent, obviously.
I wonder if that's also just a part of her personality, if she's quirky and sarcastic, and then in combination with the alcohol and the drugs.
Yeah, that's true. There were a lot of writings of hers that were found spread across the bed in the apartment. And the writings apparently were similar to this, like very incoherent kind of ramblings. Apparently, Aunt basically told police that she would write like this when she was drunk and messed up. There were also pictures of her and Aunt and her dog spread out across the bed, and Aunt described it as a shrine. So some people point to these things as like clear signs of mental illness and pointing to her being suicidal. This case reminds me a lot of Elisa Lam.
Right, yeah.
It's just really, really odd. So, like I said, we know she was alive earlier that day that she died. At 11:44 a.m., there is CCTV footage of Phoebe leaving with her dog from the building for a while because everybody had to leave. The fire alarm had gone off.
Okay.
So she's seen walking her dog. She's outside for about 6 minutes. Then everybody goes back inside and everything seems completely normal. But we don't have any other footage after this. So this is why we don't know what happened to her, like when she went into the chute, because she was found at 7 p.m. So that's why there's this huge gap.
Right.
It does seem like Phoebe was in the middle of getting ready before her death. She did have plans to meet her father for dinner that night. Her hair straightener was plugged in. She had sunglasses on her head when she was found, which bothers a lot of people. They're like, why would you have your sunglasses on when you get into the chute? I'm not super hung up about that, but some people think it's weird. Like we said earlier, she was found with her jeans below her knees. They were also undone at the waist, and her belt was only threaded through the first 2 belt loops. So some people think she may have been putting her jeans on when she was interrupted by someone.
That makes sense.
I couldn't find anything else about this, but in Phoebe's pocket, there was a piece of paper with a phone number on it. And apparently this wasn't turned into police until 7 months later. 2 drinking glasses were also found in the apartment. So some people have posed the possibility that she was drinking with someone else that night. There's different reports about the broken glass thing, but the picture I sent you, from what I could find, there's just a little bit on the floor. But police basically tried to say that she broke the glass on accident because she was drunk and she tried to pick it up, cut herself, and that's why there was some blood in the apartment. And there's not this extreme amount of blood. There's a little bit. So, but again, why would Aunt walk into the apartment, see broken glass and blood? She's missing. Her bag, her keys, all this stuff is there, and he's just going to sit down and have a beer and not try to even call her.
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture of the blood, and it's not a significant amount to conclude that someone has died. But I mean, it's a significant amount if you're coming home and you know your girlfriend's home and you know that your girlfriend has been a bit of, in emotional turmoil recently. That is enough to cause concern.
Exactly. Yeah, it's enough to cause concern. And the fact that he did nothing is at least going to raise some eyebrows. Phoebe's bag, keys, phone charger, and security swipe card were also on the kitchen counter. And the phone charger thing is really weird to a lot of people because Phoebe had 2 phones. She had an iPhone and a Nokia phone. The Nokia phone was never found. That's weird. And Aunt told police that she had lost her iPhone earlier that week. So why would she need a phone charger?
Right.
He also changed this story a couple of times. He initially said she had lost her phone, but in another version, he said he had taken this iPhone to a repair shop the day of her death. Because that night that he called her 27 times, apparently she got really mad. And I think the friend that she was with said that she threw the phone, oh my God, leave me alone, and cracked it and broke it. And so then Aunt apparently took it to this repair shop. But all that to say, she apparently didn't have either of her phones with her. I'm thinking she had her Nokia phone with her and somebody got rid of it.
Yeah.
Because why would you have a phone charger in your bag? Police also gave Phoebe's iPhone and SIM card back to Anthony just 8 days after taking them and didn't do a full examination of them. So I don't know where they found this iPhone. They didn't fully look through the phone to find anything, so that was frustrating. They got an inquest for these nearly 3 years later, and by then the SIM card was gone.
Yeah.
Aunt told police he had lost it. Phoebe's family also put in an inquest to look through her emails. And when they finally got access, all of her emails that she had ever received and ever sent were gone, completely erased.
That's unfortunate and suspicious.
Yeah, weird.
A little bit weird.
And remember, she had that computer in the apartment that her and Aunt shared. So it's possible that he or somebody in the apartment could have had access to the emails.
Yeah, I mean, I typically leave my email logged in, so.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So we know that Phoebe wasn't killed by the fall itself. She crawled around on the floor afterwards. And because police did not check if she was dead until 9 hours after discovering her, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that she was comatose and not actually dead when she was found. Police still maintain the following theory. Phoebe had been drinking, broken a glass on accident, tried to clean it up, cut herself, then went to take out the garbage, even though there was no blood found at the garbage chute at the top. And they say that because she was so intoxicated and dealing with mental health issues, she climbed inside. So in 2013, an inquest into Phoebe's death was opened by her family, and a detective testified that during the time of Phoebe's death, when they interviewed Aunt, his demeanor was very strange. He said, and you can make of this what you want, that he was crying, but no tears were coming down his face. Some friends of Aunt also found his behavior very odd and even called it performative. Like this one friend, I can't remember who it was, but like they would be with him, he'd be on his phone, like joking, act completely fine, and then like people would knock on the door to come visit him, and he would like get into the fetal position when people would come in. So it kind of seemed like he was playing it up a little bit. Coroner Peter White ruled that Phoebe's death was accidental during this inquest, and this actually went against the counsel that was assisting him. He had all these other experts looking at it, and all these other experts were like, no, like we need to keep the cause of death undetermined. That he was trying to point at it being like a misadventure, basically. And all the other people were saying, there's some signs of foul play here. We need to keep it open and undetermined. And they said that this was an obvious conclusion, but Coroner Peter White felt otherwise. Aunt was exonerated based on these findings as well. And like I said earlier, he has never been labeled a suspect. Some people have pointed to the reason that Aunt was not investigated more thoroughly as because of his connections with the law. His dad was a Supreme Court justice, and his stepmother was a county court judge. So a couple of other really suspicious things about Aunt. Shortly after Phoebe's death, Aunt applied for a superannuation fund. I had never heard of this.
Me neither.
So it's basically a death benefit payment. If you have a partner that you have lived with for long enough, my understanding is you can apply for this superannuation fund. You get paid for them dying. It's kind of like a life insurance policy.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Did not know that that existed.
I didn't either. And wouldn't you know that because Aunt's father is this Supreme Court justice, he was able to help him with all of the paperwork. He actually signed off on it. He also lied in the paperwork and said that him and Phoebe had been living together 6 months longer than they actually had. And as a result of this application, Aunt received $113,000.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I can't think of why someone would even really think to do that with a spouse that they're living with, like a girlfriend or a boyfriend. I mean, I understand, if you own a house together, you have a car, you have children, that's obviously going to be top of mind. How am I going to keep going without the income from my spouse? But as a girlfriend that you're on and off with, that's just not something that would necessarily come to mind for me, especially just because of the optics alone.
Right. It just seems like really insensitive too. Like obviously that money should go to her family. Y'all haven't been together that long. You're not married. Yep. So Phoebe's family had a big problem with this.
I bet.
They were not happy about that. So after multiple disputes, Aunt had to give some of the money to Phoebe's two brothers. I don't know how much they got. But there are some people who allege that Aunt was going through some financial issues during this time. So if that's true, that could point to motive for Phoebe's death. There were also 2 funerals for Phoebe, one that was thrown by Phoebe's family, which Aunt did not attend. And Aunt threw a funeral and didn't invite a bunch of Phoebe's friends. In 2018, 51-year-old Aunt went on to date 25-year-old Bailey Schneider. Bailey Schneider is a model. She was living with her parents and going through some similar things to Phoebe. She was struggling with alcoholism. She was in this party lifestyle. I believe she was a stripper, if my memory serves. I didn't put that in my notes, but she was living with her parents. They come home one day. They find her dead in the kitchen with a gold cord wrapped around her neck. And it was quickly ruled a suicide.
No. That's wild.
What are the chances? It's just so weird. Aunt and Bailey had also been in contact in the hours before her death, according to phone records. They basically said that she asphyxiated herself somewhere in the kitchen, even though there was like kind of similar in the Phoebe case, they couldn't find anywhere in the kitchen where she could have done this to herself. Like she couldn't have tied up the cord, and it wasn't found tied to anything. So again, like I'm having a really hard time thinking that someone would like tie a cord around their neck and like pull it themselves. It's just so weird.
To manually strangle yourself with a cord just doesn't make sense to me, because at some point you're going to pass out.
Right.
And then, because I mean, not to get graphic, but to strangle someone to the point of killing them, you have to continue strangling them after they've passed out in order to kill them.
Right. Yeah. I was talking about this with the Gabby Petito case. It takes at least like minutes and minutes to strangle someone. So it takes a lot of strength and continuous pressure. And how are you going to do that when you're like losing consciousness?
Right.
So, but I think because there was no sign of forced entry, there was no altercation in the house. So like they also weren't able to point to foul play. Aunt was also apparently attending an event in the city at the time of her death, but there's not a lot of information about this online. So I don't know if this was corroborated or not. Interesting little thing I did find. Bailey, just like Phoebe, also had 3 times the legal alcohol limit in her system. And she had traces of cocaine in her system as well. As for Aunt, he is also now apparently married.
Wow. Someone found him to be a catch, I guess.
Yeah. I hope they're okay.
Yep.
And at the time of this recording, Phoebe Handsjuk's death remains accidental. The case is considered closed, and Bailey's death is still considered a suicide and closed. Both of these cases will remain that way unless new evidence is found.
Wow.
So that is the story of the death of Phoebe Handsjuk and Bailey Schneider.
That reminds me a lot of the Ellen Greenberg case. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah.
Yes.
Where she apparently stabbed herself to death. She took her own life by stabbing.
In the back of her head.
In the back of her head, in the back of her neck. Apparently severing her own spinal cord. And then she continued stabbing herself.
She had like 20 stab wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is suicide. And her boyfriend as well. He had connections. I believe it was his uncle or something he was in law enforcement in some capacity. And I think he was one of the first on the scene as well. That doesn't make any sense.
And this is what I don't understand about cases like this. Like, I understand if there are no signs of foul play and you can't tie it to someone. I understand that you can't say it was murder and you can't like label someone a suspect. Keep the case open.
Yeah.
Why are you closing it and labeling it a suicide? And also you have all these other experts saying, dude, there is not enough evidence to say this is a suicide.
Right. And I mean, people aren't stupid. There are ways to stage suicides nowadays. Mm-hmm. People know what law enforcement are looking for. So it's not that difficult to just sort of clean things up and make it look like a suicide.
Exactly. Yeah. So really, really bothers me. And I don't know, people in Australia too. I know I have listeners there. I want to know what y'all think about this case. Keep an eye out, allegedly, in my opinion, for Anthony Hamble, because I don't know. I have a hard time thinking that you coincidentally had two girlfriends die by suicide in this mysterious way.
The statistics around having a girlfriend, two girlfriends who have both died from suicide in very unusual suicides. I just got to wonder what the stats are on that.
Right. Yeah. I feel like the chances are very, very low. So,
yeah. Wow. That was really interesting. That is awful. Hopefully her family is able to keep fighting to maybe have her case looked at as a suicide, or sorry, not as a suicide, as some sort of crime having been taken place.
Right.
I guess the next step would be to have her cause of death, manner of death changed from suicide to undetermined in order to have any sort of investigation.
That would make sense. Yeah. I don't know the state of her remains either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really hope that we get more information. And yeah, it's just awful. What do you have for me, Nikki?
The case that I'm covering, there isn't as much information as there in Phoebe's case. This is one of these cases where it's just all very bizarre, but there's just so many unanswered questions we really don't know. But his parents believe that he may have been met with foul play. So I'm telling the story of Jelani Day. Starting my research, I went onto a website that his family has created for him. And one of the first statistics that they have on the website says, back in 2020, about 36% of the people reported missing in the US were Black, even though Black Americans make up only 13% of the population.
Mm-hmm.
But despite how big the problem is, families and communities of color often have a hard time even getting their missing loved ones officially recognized as missing. So that's one of the biggest reasons that I wanted to share Jelani's case, obviously with the hope of continuing to speak his name and bring some more attention to his story. So,
absolutely.
A little bit about Jelani. He was just 25 years old when he went missing. He was raised in Danville, Illinois, and he was the fourth of 5 siblings in a tight-knit, loving community. His mom says that him and his siblings, they were all super close and really competitive with one another, always trying to outdo each other in school. This was a family that was very focused on academics, who got the best grades, who was on top, that kind of thing, but obviously in the most loving way. And Jelani, he really stood out. He was vibrant, he was athletic, outgoing, driven, and he had big dreams and the brains to match them. His siblings, they all really looked up to him with good reason. He graduated with honors from Alabama A&M University, and he was even chosen to say the prayer at graduation.
Oh, wow.
At the time of his disappearance, he was pursuing his master's in speech pathology at Illinois State University.
That's what I do.
Is it really?
Yeah, I'm a speech pathologist. Okay. That's amazing. That's not an easy thing to do.
No. And this was something that he had always wanted to do. He wanted to become a doctor, and he wanted to help people find their voice, literally. For him, his mom said it came from a childhood friend of his who had a speech impediment and was often teased. And Jelani never forgot that. So he wanted to make a difference.
Oh, I love that.
It's sweet. He was struggling a bit in school, but he was dedicated to making it happen. So that's just a little bit about Jelani in a nutshell. So let's now rewind to the morning of August 24th, 2021. Jelani logs into his school computer at around 6:20 a.m. It's a really early start, but he had a full day ahead. About an hour later, he's spotted on campus security camera. He's grabbing a coffee at the Starbucks that's located in ISU's Bone Student Center. He's dressed sharply. He's got a blue button-up shirt, black slacks, dress shoes, and a blue face mask because this is during COVID. Mm-hmm. We're just at the tail end of COVID restrictions. On all the footage, he looks really excited. He's going, he's moving, he's ready to take on the day, especially because he's getting ready for a session with a clinical patient. that's going to be happening later that day, which is a big deal for any student in the program. Obviously, you would know that.
Right. When you're in graduate school, you usually have a couple of intern or externships. And so you're working with patients usually during the day. And then at night is when I had my classes.
Okay. So for him, this was going to be the first time he would actually have a chance to meet with a patient in person because of COVID. So this is his first opportunity to kind of put in practice what he's learned.
Yeah.
And his friends and family, they all say that he was really looking forward to it. So he's dressed to the nines. He grabs his coffee. He's seen walking into Fairchild Hall. Not long after that, he walks back out. He sits on a bench. He's looking through his phone. This is all captured on the security camera. His mom has seen the footage. It hasn't been released, but it looks like he was texting. We're not sure who he's texting or what they're saying. We can't see that, just that it looks like he's on his phone texting someone. And then just moments later, he gets into his white Chrysler 300 and he drives away. That's the last time he's seen on campus. He was only on campus for about 30 minutes that day.
Okay. So obviously something really important must have come up for him to leave.
You would think so. We don't really know, but something happens between that moment and what comes next. Just a couple of hours later, he's spotted on camera again at around 9:12 a.m. This time he's spotted at a cannabis dispensary in Bloomington. He's changed his clothes, so he's not wearing his dress clothes any longer. He's now wearing a Jimi Hendrix t-shirt, white shorts, black shoes, and a Detroit Lions baseball cap.
Okay.
We don't know why he's changed. Now he's wearing something completely casual, but it's believed that he must have gone back to his apartment and changed his clothing. Again, why? We don't know, but when he walks into the dispensary, he's wearing casual clothing, not his dress clothing.
Did he buy anything at the dispensary?
He did. He buys a joint, which is perfectly legal in this state.
Yeah.
And then he walks back to his car and he leaves.
Huh.
From that moment on, Jelani disappears. He misses his 1 p.m. class that's scheduled for that afternoon, which on its own maybe wouldn't necessarily raise red flags. But he also doesn't show up for his very first in-person clinicals that are scheduled for that afternoon. So his professors are a little bit worried, but they kind of wait till the next day to see what happens. The next day, he misses classes again, and he misses another clinical appointment.
Okay.
Completely out of his character. His professor notifies campus security, and they do a wellness check. That's when they start calling his family and his friends to see if anyone has heard from him or seen him. So it's the day after the last time he's seen on security camera, August 25th. The police show up at his family home in Danville. None of his family have heard from him, and he's officially reported missing from that point. So it's now been a little over 24 hours since he's been seen on video camera. Police begin retracing his steps. They see that he's left campus that morning dressed for a professional day, but he changed his clothes. He visited a dispensary and then just nothing. They don't know where he goes from there, but it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, when you initially said that he had gone to the dispensary, I thought that he was immediately about to have his clinical. And I was like, why would he leave right before? Obviously it's still weird, but so okay, what time did he leave the university to go to the dispensary?
He was at the dispensary around 9:12 a.m.
Okay.
He had been seen around 7:30 a.m. around the campus.
Yeah.
He left maybe about half an hour after that.
And he wasn't supposed to have anything else to do until the afternoon.
Right.
Huh.
But he's changed his clothes.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense for him to leave campus, go home, change his clothes, buy a joint.
Right.
Then plan to, I don't know, go back, get dressed up again to go to his clinicals.
Right. Yeah, no, that part's super weird.
He's clearly not planning on attending his clinicals. It doesn't seem like. Just 2 days later, on August 26th, police locate Jelani's car. And this is where things start to feel really off. His white Chrysler 300, which was a car gifted to him by his grandfather, which he lovingly maintained himself and was super proud of, It's found abandoned in a wooded area behind a YMCA in Peru, Illinois, which is over 60 miles north of where his school was.
Okay.
Now, Peru, if you don't know the area, it has kind of a troubling history. It has a population of 99.4% of white people, and it's known as a sundown town, meaning historically, Black people were not safe to be there after dark, historically. So as a Canadian, when I was looking this up, I was not immediately familiar with the term sundown town, also known as a sunset town. Canada is obviously not immune to racism and discrimination, but it's not a term that we use historically. So for international listeners, a sundown town in the US, it refers to a town or a neighborhood where non-white residents, particularly African Americans, they were historically discouraged from remaining outside around town after sunset. And this would be enforced through informal social pressures, unwritten rules, even city ordinances, where it was quite literally illegal to be around town after sunset. So when we're talking about the strange disappearance of a young Black male, this detail, it obviously becomes a little bit more important.
Yeah, I'm from Texas, and there are still to this day sundown towns here.
Okay.
There are signs, too, in some really small towns that imply that harm will be done to Black people if they are out past sundown. So it also has a dangerous undertone.
Yeah, that's something I can't imagine as a Canadian.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
It is. It's horrible. Yeah. I mean, we have our own fair share of racism in Canada, but maybe not so public facing. So his car is found, and inside the car, some of Jelani's belongings are found, including a half-smoked joint, so he had smoked half of it, and his journal. There's not really anything else. Police haven't revealed if anything of importance was found written inside of the journal, but that would kind of be interesting to know.
Did they check the joint for DNA to make sure that, like, he was the one who smoked it?
I don't believe so, because much like Phoebe's story, they didn't look at this as a crime.
Right, so of course not.
Of course not. Now, another weird part, the car doesn't look disturbed. There's no signs of struggle. There's no blood. It's just eerily untouched. And the license plate is missing. It's off the car. It's just gone. So this car is just in the middle of a wooded area, just sitting there, no license plate.
Do we know if the plate was there before?
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe so. It was noted that it's unusual that the plate was gone.
Yeah, no, that's weird. There's a disappearance story that I'm doing next week that has some similar things where, like, pieces of the car were just, like, gone.
Right. Yeah. It's
not a good sign.
Strange.
Yeah.
No. So there's obviously a search launched, canine units, drones, volunteers. And then about a quarter mile away from where his car was found, his wallet is found. The cash and cards, they're missing. His mother would later say that none of his bank accounts were ever touched. So it's not as if someone had stolen and had access to his money. He didn't use his bank account. No one else touched the funds in his account. Now the police start using the phrase unexplained suspicious circumstances, and that's exactly what it was. Getting not the greatest results from police. They don't seem to be treating it as an emergency as much as Jelani's family would like them to. So they began to do their own searches near the area where the car was found. And they discover some clothing and even a gun clip in a nearby park, and they think it could be related to his disappearance. They hand it over to the police, but authorities say that they don't believe the items are actually connected to the case, meaning they don't believe that the clothing belongs to Jelani, and they don't think that the gun clip had anything to do with his disappearance. So it's just sort of tossed to the side. It's probably thrown out. It's not put into evidence.
Okay.
So then 10 days after he vanished, on September 4th, a body is found in the Illinois River. It's face down, partially clothed, about 1.5 miles from where Jelani's car was last discovered. The body had a black sweatshirt that was double knotted, tied around the waist. And that's not all that was found. The shorts and sneakers that Jelani was last seen wearing, they were also recovered, not on this body, but near the riverbank where the body had been floating. They were just folded up and sitting on a rock.
Oh, weird.
Weird. They were also found to contain unidentified DNA. So there was DNA on there that wasn't Jelani's. It hasn't specified exactly what type of DNA. We don't know what kind it was, just unidentified DNA.
Okay.
So for whatever reason, Jelani's clothing, it was removed and placed on the riverbank before he went into the water. It takes police 19 days to confirm what his family feared most, that it is Jelani's body. It took a really long time to do that. Toxicology reports show only small traces of marijuana. Obviously, he had smoked a joint. Caffeine and nicotine. So all legal, nothing that would really impair him. The official cause of death, they put drowning because he's found in the water.
Okay.
There's no other trauma found on his body, no injuries, no bruising. His mother has actually made a comment that apparently because the body was in such a bad state of decomposition, he didn't really have much skin on his body to have bruising.
Would it make sense for it to be in an advanced, well, I guess if he's in the water, an advanced state of decomposition?
It's a little bit odd. The timeline is a little bit odd.
Okay.
Because he was really only in there, I think it was about 10 days or so. The timeline is a bit weird.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how hot it is there, but I'm assuming it's not like Texas.
I don't think it's like Texas now.
Yeah, really, really hot down here. But yeah. Was there water in his lungs? Did they say anything
No
about
water
that?
in his lungs, no.
Okay.
But just because the body was found in the water, they rule it a drowning. But of course, that just, it doesn't sit right with his family because Jelani was a strong swimmer. He swam competitively in high school. And so then the question became, did Jelani do this intentionally? Had he taken his own life? Did he walk into the water to take his own life? His family did not think so. They insist that he wouldn't have taken his own life. At no point had he ever spoken about wanting to harm himself. He wasn't in a bad way. He hadn't sought therapy. He wasn't taking antidepressants. There really wasn't anything to indicate that he was feeling that way.
It's also just statistically a really weird way to take your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It would be difficult to drown yourself. You would be, especially if you're a strong swimmer, your body, the natural instinct is going to want to be to stay above water. It would be hard. But of course, we never truly know what's going on with a person's mind. So, I mean, his family can say, there were no signs that he wanted to take his own life. We don't really know. But I mean, based upon his actions that day, getting up early, dressing up, heading to class, none of it really points to someone planning to disappear or to take their own life.
Right.
He was working towards becoming a doctor. He was really excited about it. And he had just volunteered to be a stem cell donor for his father, who was battling leukemia. So he had plans to go ahead with that. Tragically, his father would pass away 7 months after Jelani was found without ever knowing what happened to his son.
That's awful.
The case sparked national attention, especially because of how differently it was treated compared to other missing persons cases. This happened at a time when Gabby Petito was missing, for example, and her disappearance received massive media push and law enforcement effort. So Jelani's family, they feel like they were left to do much of the work themselves. There wasn't as much of an effort put towards figuring out where he was when he was missing and then finding out what had happened to him.
Yeah.
In particular, his family has criticized the way the police have dragged their feet after he was reported missing. They didn't really treat it as an emergency. And they also take issue with just how long it took to identify Jelani's body. It was 19 whole days that his family had to kind of sit, wait, and worry.
Right. Yeah, that part was really weird to me. It should not take that long.
The body was badly decomposed. But they did have dental records. That's how they ultimately identified his body, as well as DNA from the family to compare to his DNA. So it sounds like it was just sort of pushed to the back burner for other cases. While rumors swirled about what happened to Jelani Day, the investigation, it kind of went cold without any evidence or of an assault or any sort of altercation, no evidence of any sort of a struggle. The police didn't believe that there was really anything to pursue. And then came kind of another twist. So a man pulls over on the side of Interstate 74 to secure a mattress that was on top of his car. While he's pulled over, he spots something on the ground. It's an iPhone. He sells it to a Walmart for $80 without knowing that it belonged to Jelani Day. Luckily, it does end up back in the hands of the FBI for forensic analysis. But despite having it in their care for over a year, the police can't figure out how to unlock it.
What?
Yeah, they have custody of the phone for over a year and they can't open it. They can't get into it.
Okay.
Eventually they give up and they give it back to Jelani's family, and it takes them just 10 days to unlock it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they were able to get into it, thankfully.
How about that?
Inside, they found texts, calls, messages, but nothing really unusual. They handed it back over to the police to kind of look through. And again, the police say that nothing crazy, in their words, was found.
Well, I want to know who he was talking to or texting, like when he went to the dispensary.
Right. None of that information has been released, but it doesn't sound like whatever was found was deemed relevant to his disappearance.
Well, you would hope they would have at least talked to that person.
You would hope so, yeah. You would definitely hope so. So there's a lot that we just don't know, but what we do know is the phone was shut off at 9:21 a.m., which was around the time Jelani was in the dispensary parking lot. So he would have went in, bought the joint, came out, and then it seems that he turned it off.
Okay.
We don't know why. We have no idea why he turned it off. It seems that his iPhone was then tossed out of the window while driving down Interstate 74, which is where it was later located. So the question is, was Jelani the one to toss the phone, or did someone else do it?
Right.
We don't know. To this day, Jelani's case, it remains unsolved. His key fob to his car was never found. His mother, Carmen Bolden Day, she's been really outspoken in her belief that her son was met with foul play and that the investigation, it's been deeply flawed from the very beginning. Although his cause of death was officially determined to be drowning, which is basically the default if a body is found in the water, the manner, whether it was an accident, suicide, or homicide, it remains to be determined. So some of the parts that bother me most about this case, in the video footage we have from that day, Jelani appears to be completely calm. He doesn't look like he's in any kind of distress. He doesn't look worried. He's smiling. He's walking around, upbeat. He's dressed to the nines, clearly ready to go to his class and his clinical trial appointment that's scheduled for that afternoon. He's also told several people how excited he was about it. So it was something he was looking forward to. Then he changes. We don't know why. He just sort of gives up on the idea of going to class. We have no idea what changed. If he was talking to somebody, we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if he didn't have a history of which it doesn't sound like he did, of missing classes and was like a really reliable student, that's very troubling.
Yeah. It's also weird that his car was found in such a strange location. There doesn't seem to be any connection to him. He wasn't really familiar with that area. There doesn't seem to be any specific reason why he would go there. The area was secluded. It was far away from where he went to school. And again, even weirder, it was discovered with no license plate. From everything that I've read, it sounds like it did have a license plate before it was found.
Right.
His clothes, wallet, and phone, they were all found in separate places. Some of his clothes were found neatly placed on the riverbank, not near the car. His phone was found in a completely different location altogether. And then his license plate was discarded separately as well. They were not scattered randomly. It almost looked like deliberate, like someone was trying to put these items in specific locations, almost staged. That's what a lot of people think.
Okay.
So those are kind of some of the strange factors around his death. His mom also says that there was other evidence that was ignored, things that haven't been documented, but she's just sort of heard through the grapevine. She says that police ignored shoe prints that were found around the car that were just never looked at, never documented, never photographed. And then there was a radio that was found near the body, and they don't know where that came from. So just things that were not really investigated, not looked at, not documented, not really concerned with. Details that obviously could provide more clues as to what happened to Jelani that day if they were looked at.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a lot of things that just don't really add up, that don't really make sense. So she's called for increased attention to her son's case, and she really wants the FBI to kind of step in and take over the investigation.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
So there's currently a $10,000 reward for any information that could help bring us some answers. So as always, I appeal to anyone listening. If you know anything about Jelani Day's disappearance, or if someone you know might, it's important to contact the authorities, because Jelani was so much more than a headline. He was a brother, a son, a future doctor, and his family very much wants to know what happened to him that day.
Mm.
And that's the story of Jelani Day. It's just a lot of questions. Unfortunately, very much similar to the story of Phoebe. Things just weren't looked at the way that they should have been. Just quickly ruled a suicide, and so not properly documented.
Yeah. I feel like this is a good time to say this too. Because not everybody knows this, when someone goes missing and police try to tell you that you have to wait 48 hours or something like that, you do not have to wait. You can file a report right away.
Yeah.
So trust your gut. If you feel like something isn't right, you can't get a hold of that person you're always able to talk to, just make the report.
That is such a huge misconception, too. I hear that all the time. Yeah, the police, you have to wait 48 hours, and you don't.
You do not. I don't know the word, but like there's no limit on how long you have to wait. That's not true. File the report. It's also just like with the speech pathology thing, there's such a shortage of people of color in our field. It is predominantly white women. So the fact that we had this like Black man who was going into the field is like so rare and cool and inspiring. And the fact that like his life was cut short, there are like so many patients in this field who need more male voices, more people of color's voices. And
yeah,
we need more information about his disappearance. Like I wish we knew more about his phone records and the car. And I understand that there's situations where police keep things like that close to their chest, but it sounds like the family doesn't know much of anything either.
No.
Which makes me think that it just has not been, and like you were talking about with the evidence too, it just has not been properly investigated. And now a lot of that's probably lost.
Yeah. So I recently covered another case, Crystal McCrory Jones. She was found in her bed. It was ruled a suicide. They said that she had shot herself, that she had put a pillow over her face, and she was found in bed with a bullet hole through her head. And there was a lot of suspicious circumstances with her husband that day. It was just really strange. So her sister, Jana, has been spearheading. She's done such amazing things trying to get her sister's story heard because she suspects foul play.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really suspicious circumstances. And one of the things that she's pushing for that just makes sense is all of these cases where it might look like it's a suicide, where police might have a hunch that it's a suicide. They might think all of these cases need to be treated the same as if it were a crime at first, until it can be definitively ruled out to be a suicide. Everything needs to be like crime scenes. It needs to be treated like it is a crime scene, even if it's suspected, oh, this person shot themselves. They have because she was found with the gun in her hand still, which is odd. And so they immediately looked at her and went, yep, suicide, didn't take anything from the scene, didn't take enough pictures. It was completely contaminated. And then now when you're getting stories from people who knew her, people who knew about her marriage, other factors, his whereabouts, his behavior that seem suspicious, well, that crime scene, it's all been lost. It's too late. You can't go back and get it.
Right. Whereas if they would treat it like a crime scene in the first place, then we can hold on to that evidence and potentially use it later.
Yeah, because if it's not, if police deem it to be a suicide right off the bat, if they just get a hunch, if it looks like one, then they don't have to document anything. They don't have to take as many pictures. They're already biased to the situation, and you really only get one shot at it. So
right. So they're working on a law for that.
Yeah, she's been spearheading this initiative, and oh my gosh, she's amazing what she's doing.
Yeah.
So hopefully.
It's just awful.
It is.
I hope that their family gets answers too.
Here's hoping. His family, they're still fighting. They're still fighting the good fight. So again, like, we'll see what happens. What they need, I guess, is they need a little bit more public support. They need some sort of, maybe if someone knows anything, to step forward with any more information that could help to prompt a criminal investigation.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing Phoebe's story. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. So my podcast is Perplexity, a mystery podcast. I release new episodes every Wednesday. You can find it anywhere podcasts are available. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook at Perplexity Mystery Podcast. And I'm on YouTube as well with video and everything. So I would love to have you. And if you do listen, I would love to know if you found me from Serial Napper. I always like to hear where you guys are from.
Definitely go give Kaydra a listen, because especially tonight's episode was a little bit more heavy. But if you're looking for a little bit more of the spooky, mysterious, it's a nice little break.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
I do a lot of true crime, but I also cover all things mysterious. So if you have a keen interest into the paranormal, into like weird historical stuff, psychological phenomenon, UFOs, I cover all kinds of things. So I would love to have you.
Go check it out for a spooky, mysterious palate cleanser.
Well, thank you, Nikki. This was awesome.